Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Climate Action Consultancy, which we will be diving into in a second.
And my name is Jason Lowry. My pronouns are he, him. I also work with the Climate Action Consultancy as Director of Technology and Implementation.
Okay, so what is the CAC? So the CAC is a student-led organization offering free environmental consultation to businesses and homeowners in Ontario. So it was founded in 2021 by Henry and Joe with the goal of bridging the gap between research and the community in order to improve local adaptation and mitigation to climate change. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. So why Henry and Joe decided to found the CAC was because they noticed that there's often a lot of organizations out there that focus a lot on awareness, which is super important. But they wanted to do something that would focus more on action. So trying to actually make tangible impact in the community. And one of the ways that they thought to do this was through offering free consulting services, because oftentimes individuals or businesses might want to seek out environmental consulting, but it's actually really expensive in most cases. So we wanted to make it accessible to individuals of all kinds and businesses, especially small businesses. That's kind of who we target. And yeah, so since climate change is such a defining crisis of our generation, this is why they decided they needed to create an organization that would allow us to take action now and really make an impact in the community. So our goals are interdisciplinary, environmental consultation, information sharing, and policy. So we want to take an interdisciplinary approach to tackling climate issues. So our team is made up of individuals from all different faculties at McMaster, all different backgrounds. So kind of bringing everyone's individual different knowledge bases and bringing them together to really come up with unique solutions. Like I said, we offer free consultation to businesses and residents in Ontario. In terms of information sharing, we do some stuff with awareness through social media campaigns, and also we hope to eventually one day host some in-person events if things improve going forward into the fall and the winter. And then lastly, we hope to eventually one day also do some work influencing local policy in Hamilton. So our executive team is here on the screen. So there's me and Jason. So yeah, this is, it was started by Henry and Joe back in the winter, and then the rest of us joined on in March, and we've been working very hard to get things going since then. And then these are some of our undergraduate researchers. There's actually more than on the screen now because we keep growing. But like I said, everyone's from different faculties. So you can see on the screen, there's some people in sciences, we have some business people, we also have some social science people. So lots of different backgrounds to bring a wide variety of viewpoints to issues. So the services that we offer is consulting to businesses. So we target local businesses in the community. We started with businesses specifically just in Hamilton, but we're really looking forward to hoping to grow that to other places in Ontario. We recently started up our resident Hamilton resident consulting service. So that's been going really well so far. Lots of residents are really engaged and really interested in learning about ways that they can make their homes more eco-friendly and sustainable, and ways that they can really make a difference. And that's been really helpful, especially with the latest Canada Greener Homes grant that was just released. And then we haven't done this yet officially, but we hope to also start to make some recommendations to local policy and bring things forth and working with like local urban planners and government and stuff like that. We can go, yeah. So for, like I said, we engage in some information sharing campaigns. So we have a bunch of reports featured on our website under building capacity. So these are aimed at increasing the capacity of the local community to address environmental issues in Hamilton. And this includes resources for both businesses and residents. And they have information on different like green initiatives and how to finance them. And a lot of these we also do make into graphics, which we post on the social media. So just making it a little bit easier to read for, but yeah, if you're interested, you should definitely go check these out. I'm gonna link the website in here. But yeah, you can do that after though, don't go get distracted. We can go to the next slide.
I'll send all everyone's, I'll send your guys' contacts and your Instagram social media in the chat after you.
Perfect, thank you. So our consulting process, so this is how I'm going to walk us through how we consult with businesses. So first we do like an initial meeting with stakeholders and we kind of come up with a collaborative set of goals and objectives. So we ask them like what their areas of concern with their business are, and we kind of make a list. And then our researchers meet up and kind of break this into like different sections and then come up with a series of questions that they send back to the business to request like specific information. Once we get that information that we need in order to finish doing our research, we compile a final report, which is then peer reviewed, and then we share this with the stakeholder. So the goal is to generate a fully detailed action plan to improve the sustainability within the business. And so our final report includes like applicable subsidies and grants and bursaries available to fund their specific environmental efforts that they want to do, options for retrofitting, solutions brought up by the client. Like sometimes we work collaboratively with them and come up with a unique solution. And then also just like steps and timelines for them to use. And then also just like other helpful information for them. And then sometimes if they need help applying for grants in the future, like we'll help them with the next stage of actually fulfilling things that we list in the report. So on the next slide, yeah, we just have like a little example of what one of our reports would look like. Kind of, this one's on wastewater management. And now I'm going to pass the torch over to Jason for the rest of the presentation. So.
Perfect. Thanks for passing the torch, Rebecca. You can just go on to the next slide. I'll start from there. Okay, so financing green initiatives. So how do we finance sustainability? Oftentimes, the more environmentally friendly or more sustainable option can be more expensive than the conventional option, almost like a green premium. So it's really important that we help offset this cost in whatever method we can for our stakeholders. And this is largely done through finding grants, subsidies, or government and corporate funded programs aimed at funding sustainable change, as well as incentives such as the return on investment of investing in something that's more energy efficient or will help the user save more money in the long term, even if the upfront cost is more expensive than the conventional option. And the benefits of this is, like I said, increased affordability for businesses and residents in the long term. It's a higher likelihood that they'll actually implement the changes that we're suggesting if they do have some sort of financial help provided through these grants or subsidies. And especially support for sustainability during COVID-19, where a lot of small local businesses were really struggling financially with less demand and less opportunities to like bring consumers into stores and such. And below that, we just have a little table and excerpt, if you will, from the Financing Green Initiatives report, which is part of our Building Capacity series on our website. And some of these include incentives from corporate suppliers such as Enbridge or Union Gas Limited or Save on Energy, which is funded through the Independent Electricity System Operators of Ontario. So if you just want to go down to the next slide, sorry, I can continue. So examples of some solutions that we might suggest to a business or a homeowner would be a major one is often switching from fluorescent lighting to LED if they haven't already done so. And this is because LED lights are much more energy efficient and have a significantly longer lifespan than traditional compact fluorescent lighting bulbs. And then some of the benefits listed below is that you can see a 20% savings on electricity. So if you add this up for the entire year, it does amount to a substantial amount of savings. And then also a 2.5 times longer lifespan means less replacement costs as well as less waste generated by the business. Another solution that we often suggested are energy monitoring systems. So these are typically data-driven systems of smart thermostats, such as, I believe there's a Canadian company called Ecobee that does a lot of these, as well as Nest. It analyzes a homeowner's or even a business's heating and cooling needs and how often they are like actually occupying the building. They work with occupancy sensors and various more uses of technology. But there's also other options as well, such as water consumption monitoring or automatic lighting sensors that usually run on motion. When someone walks into a room, it'll turn it off, and as soon as there's no motion, they'll shut off to help save and conserve energy. And these also amount to a lot of savings over the course of an entire year. Once again, with 10 to 20% savings on utilities, and there is a return on investment of such energy projects, like the energy monitoring systems we have listed there. And lastly, overall building envelope retrofitting, or essentially any retrofits that help improve the ability of the building to keep itself cool or keep itself hot, depending on which season we're in. And this is largely done through upgrading insulation and upgrading to more efficient, not more efficient, but more insulating doors and windows, as well as entrance caulking, just so there's no air leaks into and out of the house. And all these steps all together can really add up to a lot of money in savings. Like we have here listed that you can get anywhere between $2,500 and $9,000 per year in savings from just commercial caulking alone, which is quite substantial. And then promotions and outreach. So the main stakeholders we partner with are small to medium-sized businesses in the Hamilton and Toronto area who are interested in sustainability and finding ways to make their business or reduce their business's impact on the environment for a variety of reasons. And then along with these businesses, we've started working with residents, actual homeowners, individual homeowners. Will dedicate our time to them to help them find green initiatives and along with the retrofits that go along with these green initiatives. And like I said, the grants and subsidies to help reduce that upfront cost on the homeowner themselves. And then we're also partnered with environmental business organizations such as the Eco Collective Hamilton, which has been really helpful with finding more connections in the community. And this is exactly our goal with such efforts of promotion and outreach, is to really expand our network in the Hamilton community and find people who are passionate about what we're passionate about and can recommend us to more businesses and stakeholders to help make more of an impact. I believe that's pretty much it for this slide. If you just go down to the next one. So here are a few of our partners. Of course, there's Zero Waste Hamilton. We're really happy to be here tonight, along with Turksha Maza, which is a law firm in the Hamilton area, Eco Hamilton. Of course, they've been really helpful in allowing us to find and connect with these other sustainability-oriented businesses. We have Save Our Scruffs there with the two dogs on their emblem. They do work rescuing dogs from from other countries and bringing them to Canada so they can have a better home. And then we also are partnered with Fairweather Brewing, which is a local brewery near the Ainsley Wood East neighborhood in Hamilton. Shoppers Drug Mart, FEES, which is stands for Fair Vostro Energy Solutions. They're an energy consulting firm, and then they have a subsidiary, Luta, who has they've developed an app which allows homeowners to audit their furnaces, air conditioning units, and their cars to find, and it recommends more energy efficient or more I guess options that reduce emissions overall, along with other things such as there's a community hub where people can learn more about everything sustainability oriented, from articles on the environment to sustainable products that people can use, to developing news of how other companies are trying to combat climate change. So those are the main partners that we've been working with so far.
And just to add into what you said, really quickly, you made a really good point about how it's quite difficult to challenge like the entire system. So completely, for example, like electric cars aren't something that people can afford, right? So making those small incremental changes. And that's something that we've been focusing on too, the theme of you can't do everything alone by yourself. That's why it's so important to have research and resources available to you to know about what incremental changes can be made. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the whole thing with we're focusing on systems rather than like specific issues. So that's a really good point that you guys made. Yeah.
These were the ones that got switched up. So if you just go to the barriers one, we'll do that and then come back to intersectionality. So like Mohammed was just mentioning, there are often many barriers to implementing sustainable and equitable solutions in our community. One of those being that it oftentimes requires a substantial amount of capital to start a business or own a home in Ontario and consistently improve it year after year. And then on that note, if you don't own the home or the building that you reside in, you don't really have a lot of leverage to make energy efficient retrofits or implement these different renovations. And on top of that, like I said earlier, that these newer green or sustainable technologies and retrofits can typically be more expensive than the conventional process or equipment used in a business or home. And that's because for over 100 years now, we've been quite dependent on fossil fuels. So there's economies of scale that makes these things cheaper, even though their cost doesn't reflect the true cost, you could say, that it has on our environment. It's just oftentimes the most conventional method that's been used for a long period of time is the cheapest. So our goal is to help do our part to create a more sustainable and equitable world. And for us, that would look like one in which all humans, regardless of their status or income, have access to the following, which is reliable and renewable energy, sustainable sources of nutritious food, energy efficient and comfortable homes, affordable and quality education, and sustainable employment opportunities. So now if you go to the intersectionality slide, you can touch on that a bit more. So why is it important to value intersectionality and sustainability? So we believe that it's really important that sustainability initiatives are undertaken at a community level. And as we've been learning more and more about climate change, we can see that the vulnerability to and severity of impacts from climate change vary among different communities based on where they live in the world and their income and status as well. Oftentimes it's the people who contribute the least to the climate crisis, people in developing countries, who are going to bear the brunt of the environmental effects of climate change if we don't try to correct it as much as we can. So it's important to acknowledge that these disparities do exist, and there should be like targeted efforts to help these people who don't necessarily have the financial means to access certain sustainable like equipment or practices, like you're mentioning earlier. It's electric cars right now, since they're a relatively new technology, are quite expensive. Solar panels are quite expensive. Certain vegan foods are more expensive, or like more sustainability oriented clothing products are also more expensive. So our goals is to ensure that there are services and products that are equitably provided and made accessible to the Hamilton community. And we really, sorry.
No worries, though, that's okay. I actually just want to add in a point really quickly too. You made such a good point. Yes, agreed. And one thing that we were looking at 2 weeks ago as well is that we were actually looking at, like, so the physicality of it as well. It's not just folks who contribute the least to the climate crisis, but also cultures and people who are rooted very close to the land. So, like, for example, we were looking at a reading from Sheila Waklaute. She's an Inuit activist, and she was talking about how melting glaciers and global warming were literally killing their cultures in ice. So just in terms of like hunting, in terms of there were so many interesting things that we looked at. We looked at communication between different groups of Inuit folks. We looked at their languages. And so many things, those cultures that are the most vulnerable as well, they're the ones who are affected the most. For also the same thing with coastal cultures, right? Rising sea levels, just like completely, abolishing villages, abolishing small towns. So it is a really sad reality that the people who contribute the least, or the folks who don't know as much, are the ones who are affected the most. Yeah, that's a really good point. And if anyone has any questions, just put them down. I'm getting a couple, so we'll ask you guys at the end of your presentation.
Oh, okay, perfect. No, and that's a really good point that you made earlier. That like in the global world that we live today, that we live in today, where everything is so connected, like there are certain industrial practices that might go on halfway across the world and affect people that have no say over it. They don't even know it may be happening, but they do see the environmental effects later on that had nothing even to do with what they actually do as their own culture. So that's a very good point, something to keep in mind. And just to, like, on that point, our goal with the CAC is to also work on understanding the unique needs and challenges of stakeholders in Hamilton, and especially incorporate more diverse perspectives into our research. So not only are we looking at the environmental impact of certain recommendations that we're making, but also the social impact. So I was even just talking with Henry earlier, and he was mentioning how we're looking to, in our reports, eventually get to the point where if we're suggesting something such as a solar panels, for instance, we would also mention where certain, like, if they're looking from a certain supplier, where are their supply chains coming from? So where are they getting the resources of the various semiconductors and rare earth metals that go into these products, and are they mined in a way that is sustainable and also supports a local economy where it comes from, rather than just exploiting the land and not actually supporting the people who live there. So that's something that we're looking at, including in our reports as we continue.
Have you guys heard about Code Red Hamilton?
I have.
Yeah. As we
I
were,
have, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it was mind blowing. Does anyone in the audience want to speak out about that? Or I'll give a quick little recap. But we were learning about that, and it was so shocking to learn that literally, like, where you live in Hamilton determines your lifespan. So, like, the main finding of the report was that folks living in lower developed, less accessible regions of Hamilton, specifically Low-Rains, and I think it was downtown Hamilton and near Ancaster, or like that area. But there was a 20-year life expectancy gap between folks who were living in lower underdeveloped parts versus those living in, like, better parts of Hamilton. And so just that also with the accessibility, it's I think Hamilton is like a very living mosaic of how we see the needs of the community. And so that's one thing that we've been struggling with too, like getting food to places when it needs to be there, and who needs it, and what access, what not, right? So that's a really big thing as well. And yeah, accessibility, we're really happy that you guys put an emphasis on that, because I think the thing is that a lot of the time, many environmental efforts, sustainability efforts become very performative in that sense. And we've been looking at that too, like making that direct effort, directly engaging with the community that you're helping. It actually is long-term is better because you know what they need.
Those are definitely very good points. And just to add on to it, that, in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion, some of our actions include GIS-based analysis. So like you were saying, how in Hamilton, how the quality of life can vary so much from neighborhood to neighborhood based on various different factors, such as employment opportunities, income, access to healthcare, and all these different services. So our goal with the GIS-based analysis, we have several people within our organization, just due to the nature of the courses that they're in, they have knowledge and training on GIS, and we're interested in taking the approach of seeing where for instance, like the stakeholders, whether it be businesses or homeowners, where are they coming from, or where have they come from so far, and which areas would we like to target a bit more to help to ensure that we're not only just helping those who are more financially well off, but as well as the people who really need this help, especially since we're doing this environmental consulting for free. And along with that, it's helpful that we're starting to partner with EDI community partners, such as the Hamilton, I think it's the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion. We're in contact with them, and we're hoping that will foster a good relationship that allows us to connect to more diverse communities in Hamilton. And then, like I mentioned earlier, in our consulting reports, we want to talk more about the social impacts of the recommendations that we make, and the benefits of not only these recommendations to the environment, but also how they might improve other people's lives in society. And then social media is also a big part of this, is making these things more aware to other people, and also in a, like Rebecca was mentioning earlier, in a format that's a bit easier and more intuitive to read. So then our team, along with that, to help us implement these actions, we've recruited a director of equity, diversity, inclusion. And then we also have an EDI specialist underneath that role, along with our director of communications is critical for this, and our research staff. We're gonna work on training them on the importance of including equity, diversity, inclusion to our consulting reports, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so that pretty much wraps up our presentation. So these are just different places that you can find us. So that's our website. I already linked it in the chat. Our email's there. Our brand new Instagram. We did have an Instagram going for a while, but unfortunately got deleted. So there's not a whole lot of content up there at the moment, but there will be hopefully in the near future. So that's CAC_Hamilton if you guys wanted to go check that out. We also have a Facebook and a LinkedIn. And yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for attending tonight and listening to us talk about our organization, and also just about sustainability and the importance of equity and diversity and inclusion in that. If you guys have any questions, I guess, sorry, I don't mean to take over, but.
Oh, no, not at all. Again,
yeah, okay.
I have some questions. I've gotten some direct messages, but I will let anyone in the call just ask your questions first. You guys can unmute yourselves and go right ahead. Thank you, guys. That was an amazing presentation. Go right ahead. Anyone?
Rebecca and Jason, thank you so much for attending today. And something I wanted to ask is, have you seen any tangible effects of your work within the community, and what did that look like? And I also wanted to mention, I really like how your organization values accessibility, how you try to bridge the gap between the Hamilton community, and regardless of their socioeconomic status, you're trying to raise awareness about climate action that can be taken, and how to really improve with whatever they're doing, whether they're in a business or something else.
Would you like to take this, or me, Rebecca?
If you have a thought, you can go. Yeah.
I was going to say thank you very much for the question, Eliza. So far, we've like I mentioned, we've been working with several partners in Hamilton and the surrounding communities. A couple of our homeowners are from other areas in Southern Ontario, but we have finished up a few reports for some of the residential homeowners, and they've actually expressed interest in applying for these grants that we've recommended and actually implementing these retrofits to their houses that they're already looking at doing, but now they know of the more energy efficient products that will actually make a bigger impact on reducing their carbon footprint. So that's been a pretty encouraging impact. And then we're also finishing up our report specifically for Fairweather Brewing. And we've recommended many ways in which they can reduce their carbon footprint, as long as the waste that they produce from the brewing process, and they've expressed interest in implementing that as well once we've submitted the report to them. So anyway, we can help both these homeowners as well as the businesses reduce their carbon footprint, emit less greenhouse gases. That's what we're all about at the end of the day here.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering my question.
Awesome. And then we just have, I got direct message question as well. Okay, so do you think that small business owners and folks don't know about the resources available to them? So for example, with the brewing process, does the company themselves not know about the impact that they're making? And do homeowners and small businesses also not know about the grants available to them?
I think a lot of times when you are owning a business, especially a smaller business, you're very like devoted just to like getting the day-to-day things organized, like in terms of like ensuring your staff are doing everything properly and like operations and stuff like that. And especially during COVID with the changing restrictions all the times, and a lot of companies took a financial blow as well, so they just don't have the time and resources to go out and do this research. And to be honest, like a lot of the information that's out there is not necessarily presented in a way that's like really accessible to a lot of people, which is really great that there is a lot of other organizations out there like trying to work in information sharing, and that's like where we're trying to like fit in a little bit there. But we find it particularly like important to present like, so we kind of compile everything, so then it saves like all this time for these small business owners and for these individuals in like a report where they can read everything that's applicable to just them as well. Because often if you're like looking for grants too, you might see stuff that's like not really applicable to yourself, and this just adds to the time consuming nature of everything, and also can add to some confusion if you're not quite sure like what grants you are eligible for and what retrofits you're eligible for. So yes, there are like individuals out there that and businesses that do have access to this knowledge, but we're just being that like that step there to help them get this information in an easier way, and in a way that won't take away from other business practices where they're needed. So yeah. I don't know if you have anything else to say to that, Jason.
Yeah, just to add on to what Rebecca was saying, is a lot of the work that we do, realistically, if a business owner or a homeowner wanted to spend all this time to find out for themselves, they could, like for the most part, a lot of it is pretty much accessible through the internet. We're just helping make it more convenient for them, save them time, save them confusion, like Rebecca was mentioning. Oftentimes, especially for homeowners who are older, it can be quite confusing. Like for instance, the Canada Greener Homes Grant on the natural resources website on the government of Canada's website was like we developed or we wrote up a report on it to try to make it a bit more concise and straightforward. But even to make that report was a lot of researching and looking at the different requirements and how much money is allocated to what based on like eligible retrofits and certain like performance criteria of what like how good the R value of your installation needs to be, or how much money do you get per kilowatt of solar panels you install. So there are a lot of like nitty gritty details that we just kind of try to lay out in a more like a manner that's easier to read for people, and it's just a bit more straightforward for them.
That's such a great point that you guys add on. I think to that as well, you understand that a lot of the times the folks that don't know about the resources, or it's just the like you were saying, the nitty gritty, a lot of the time the people who are filling out those applications or doing those things are BIPOC, or they are disabled, or they are underprivileged in some way. And it's just also a really big privilege for us to be able to be at that par to go to post-secondary education, to know how to fill out applications and whatnot, to know, like, even I remember like filling out OSAP the first time. I was so nervous. I had no idea what line T170 or whatever it was. And I think one thing to that too is like, it's so important to have that accessibility, because when people don't know about the resources available to them, a theme that we were focusing on is the cycle of poverty, or the cycle of continuation, which is that these cycles are just perpetuated again and again. You stay within that realm of knowledge. And so we've seen that within the pandemic as well, where folks are highly misinformed about the vaccine, or very misinformed about how to stay safe, or just options available to them. And so it definitely is really a privilege that we even have a post-secondary education to go to and access those resources. Yeah, so it's really important. Yeah. And then, yeah, awesome. And then we have one more question. Okay, so for those who want to learn more, how do they get involved, even if they are not post-secondary in post-secondary institutions or post-secondary students?
Yeah, so I think the plan for the CAC for the future is we actually do want to develop a branch for high school students and youth, so that we're still like very new organization and things are evolving all the time. So definitely I would recommend just like following us on social media, maybe even sending an email just saying, hey, I'm really interested in this. And then when it does come time that we're ready to develop that branch, then you would be the first to know about it, and we'd be able, like, we'll be probably posting that information on our social media. And if you do contact us by email, we'll send you an email like when the time comes. As well, with that branch, so that would maybe be like something research based, but we do also hope to in the future host some events as well. So, and those will also be posted on our social media. So those are other great ways to get involved. But yeah, pretty much just reach out to us. We're always open to getting more like-minded individuals that want to actually make a difference and help out.
Awesome. And your guys' reports, are those made public, or just to the people that they're for, or just to the companies or businesses or consultations are for?
So our building capacity reports, those are made public on our website, but the ones specifically that we provide to our homeowners or businesses, we write up a confidentiality agreement with them ahead of time, just because they provide us with some more specific information on their utility bills and water bills and natural gas bills. Just they don't really want us sharing that with everyone, or like information exactly to that. So we keep those more private with the stakeholder that we're working with. But our all of our building capacity reports are public and for anyone to read on our website if they would like to.
Beautiful, awesome. Yes, I encourage you guys, definitely go check out these reports. One really important thing, but that is everyone who's in the meeting right now, you can understand the layout of information and just looking at the resources available. So I definitely, we've been looking at our past themes the past 2 weeks have been finding adequate and trustable resources. So please, everyone, definitely go take a look at that and just see the outlay of it. And yeah, that's awesome. So I will link your guys's website as well. And they can reach out to you on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Beautiful, awesome, okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Or you just hold on for a bit? If we don't have any more questions, we can end the meeting. I think, yeah, I think we're good. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much for guests for letting us host you guys. Thank you so much for being guest speakers. Your organization is amazing, and we're so happy that we're making these types of intersectional and integrated efforts more mainstream. I think they're really new, and it's really hard to get out a big sort of mass message of the community. And I think this is a great way to do it. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you very much for hosting us and for everyone for your time to